Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. Welcome to In a Lonely Place. And remember, you're never lonely if you've got music in your life, especially rock and roll. And I'm really happy to be with you on this Friday. We are celebrating two birthdays today. Well, there's more than two, but two really important ones. John Lennon would have been 80. And John Entwistle, bass player from The Who, whose shirt I'm wearing from the single sleeve of I Can See for Miles, one of the great early Who singles. John Entwistle would have been 76 had he had lived. Jackson Brown's birthday is today as well. So there's a lot of people born on this day, October 9th. And a lot of people were saying to me, man, I didn't know Entwistle and Lennon were born on the same day. But yeah, that's true. Anyway, In a Lonely Place, we got the name, of course, from the Humphrey Bogart movie, the Smithereens song, the New Order song, when the pandemic started. And we've been doing the show ever since. And I'm very, very excited about our guest today from one of my favorite rock bands that's come out in the last 10 years. Well, I guess they came out around 2009. But regardless, love these guys. I think they really are the spirit of rock and roll. And they've done some amazing tours, amazing albums. And Feral Roots, their most recent album, was nominated for 2 Grammys and is just loved by the rock and roll community all over. And I am really happy to have the guitarist from that band, founding member, Scott Holiday, with us today. Scott, how are you, brother?
How's it going, Matt?
It's good to see you, man. It's been a while since the last couple shows I've seen, I think, were the Wiltern and over at the Fonda here in Los Angeles. And they were both great shows.
Yeah, I saw you at the right after our Wiltern show. That's the last time we saw each other, huh?
Yeah, we were hanging out after that. You know, and of course, it really bums me out that we're not, seeing the live shows and you guys aren't on the road. But so how's it been for you during the pandemic? Have you been using this time to do some writing or?
Yeah. I've been actually really busy right out of the gate. We were taking a little hiatus after a long touring season for us with Feral Roots. So we were going into Christmas after the Wiltern and all that, and then the Grammys. We were taking a couple months off anyway, which was kind of serendipitous or not, because then we thought we were going to jump back on the road. We never really stopped. But since we had taken the break, we were kind of firing it back up and went, oh my God. But we were kind of situated at home. I had gotten into a new house, got a new puppy, spending time with the kids, and kind of getting in the mindset of writing a new record anyway. I was just kind of holding it off, staving it off, like, okay, we'll tour through the summer, I'll come home and we'll write the record. But I was kind of right there on the line anyway. So instead of going out on the road, I kind of jumped right into writing new songs and kind of went with both feet, just jumped into that. And even amongst doing that, started talking with different people in the business and different bands and stuff, and started kind of something I had left for the last, 6 years or something, which was getting a little bit more into co-writes and production. So I've stayed busy.
That's great. Can you tell us about any of the upcoming artists that you've been working with that you can let the audience know about?
I've worked with a few different people. Most of them are a handful of different people, but a few of them that I'm really focused on are younger, newer bands. One band is called Slaves to Humanity. They're young kids. You can't believe it. I think the singer's 15, and they range from 15 to 19. So I did about 4 songs with these guys, and they just put something out I think you can listen to called Quarantine that we did together. And that was a lot of fun. I think my idea was, with working with young artists, it's, guys my age that have been doing rock and roll for a while, guys your age too. We've been complaining about rock and roll. Like, what's going on with the rock and roll scene? Where's the real rock? You always hear this kind of conversations backstage and just when you're out. And I think there's a lot of good rock, but I think also if there is any void or whatever, I just felt like maybe it's time to just contribute directly to the rock and roll scene rather than just make my own, kind of put in a little bit and help other artists out and try to make what we're hearing in our heads,
Absolutely. And, Slaves to Humanity been getting played here in Los Angeles on KLOS. Keith Cunningham, the program director, is a huge fan of theirs. So
crazy. Yeah, they're getting picked up right away. And that came to me through some other management friends. And some of the earlier stuff they did, I thought, well, this isn't exactly in line with what my band is doing or where I think rock and roll needs to be, but I met with these guys and they were really great guys, really good players, and just seemed like we could have a lot of fun, and we ended up creating some really cool music. So I've worked with him. Then I've worked in some other different directions. I've worked with an artist named Gallo, which is completely a whole nother direction, much more of like 80s kind of goth electro kind of thing, just kind of exercising. You know what I mean? It's a good
Yeah.
exercise for me as a producer and a writer, and that should be out pretty soon too. And then I worked with somebody that you probably haven't heard of yet that I won't mention. That's going to be on the. It's kind of on the works right now.
That's great, though. I mean, I love you to keep you busy while you're working on writing the other stuff and working on new Rival Sons material. Talk to me about how you guys originally ended up getting together. I mean, you guys being down in Long Beach, but there was the story about finding Jay through MySpace. Tell me about that, because that was when, I mean, obviously at that period of time, like it was in the early 2000s to about 2010. That was still a really viable vehicle for ways to find artists. And
Yeah, you don't realize when you're telling these stories how dating they are. We didn't realize how dating it would be. Yeah, I had been playing with Michael, with Miley, my drummer, and our then bass player Robin already, with another singer, a great guy named Tom Flowers, who was in the band. And we were doing a different project, and
where you signed to Atlantic for a little while would have been like called Human Lab and did some shows.
that's true as well. Previous to that project, I was with a band called Human Lab that was kind of like a real pet project for me, and it signed to Atlantic. And actually, the same president, our president of Atlantic now is Craig Cowman, and he had just become president then, and he's the president now, kind of far out.
Yeah, I remember Human Lab because I think that's the first time we met, and it was like another part of the country, but there was something going on.
Oh my gosh, where did we meet then? God, that band didn't really get out,
Yeah, but that's the first time that you and I met. I remember.
Wow. Okay.
But it's pretty crazy looking back that far and just I mean, it's
Wow.
yeah, it's a while ago, but that's cool. So, I mean, obviously, Jay is such an incredible songwriter. I mean, obviously, everybody in the band are great players and singer, I should say. I mean, Jay's singing is, for me, it's the things that I loved about Paul Rodgers, and just, I mean, I always loved Free and early Bad Company, and I just thought he has that thing that makes him a great white blues singer and rock singer. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think at the time when I found him, just to connect to what you previously asked me, I had thought about I needed to move this project somewhere else, because without a Jay Buchanan in the band, I had no real foil. I was writing everything. I was writing the music, writing the lyrics, and really guiding the band. And as much as that's a thing I can do, I didn't really want to do that. I wanted a partner. I wanted somebody to like reflect with. And I really think if the singer needs to be writing his own words. I think that's always the best.
Yeah.
The kind of music that I'm doing, especially, it's coming out of their mouth. It needs to be something that's in their heart,
Yeah.
So I was looking for somebody else, and just kind of randomly looking through, at the time, MySpace, and saw Jay's name, and I didn't know who Jay was, and clicked on that link. When I clicked on the link, I really heard about 17 seconds of a song called Satan is a Woman, and in that moment it was like, lightning had struck the top of my head.
Yeah.
And I just knew immediately. I just had an immediate feeling like, oh, this is the voice. I've been looking for this voice for a long time, a lot of years, and really digging around for it, and meeting people and auditioning people and just keeping my ear to the ground. And I immediately hit up Miley about it and said, I found the guy. I found the guy that fits what I'm writing. This is the voice that I've been hearing the whole time. And you were mentioning all the people that he reminds you of, and that he has this perfect recipe for what you like in a rock and roll singer. Well, I'll tell you one thing that you didn't mention that was crucial to me.
Yeah.
And it's something that I found through auditioning people, that the guys that were too into all those bands that you mentioned, and so many more, a lot of them were just having a difficult time finding their own voice and finding authenticity. because if you think of those old singers, they weren't listening to those bands that they became. So what were they listening to before? They were listening to a lot of blues and
Yeah.
soul and inventing blue-eyed soul and a lot of folk. And it was, the influences were coming from different places, and they were just a little bit more, it was just a little bit more colorful. I hate to say that these heroes that we're talking about in some way watered that down, but it's like that. As the influences get further down the line, you almost have to go back. You have to go back to these early, the Kings, these early creators. And one thing for me about Jay was that that's what he seemed like he was. He wasn't a Robert Plant guy or a Paul Rogers guy or that wasn't his thing, man. He was
like blues guys, right? Like he loved a lot of the blues stuff, didn't he?
We talked about a lot of old blues, and
soul,
we talked about a lot of folk, and he was really into really is into Appalachian music and all these different styles, or Eastern style singing, and all these different ethnic and interesting types of music. And for me, that was the validating, authenticating moment for me when we really talked. Yes, exactly. I'm not looking for a guy that wants to be Daltrey. I'm not looking for a guy that wants to be John Lennon or Robert Plant or any of or Paul Rogers.
Well, because they've already been there, right? I mean, you can't be those guys. When I say something like, "Oh, it reminds me of the soul of it more than anything else." He doesn't sound like.
Oh no, I thought exactly what you thought. Trust me.
Yeah,
the first time I heard "Sing This Woman," I thought, holy shit, this guy sounds like the young Paul Rogers, like fire and water, but not bullshitting with it. That sounds authentic.
Yes, and that's authenticity is the difference between other bands we know, not to name any names, but you know what I'm talking about, other bands that are going directly to sound exactly like something.
And it's in a way, that's what we all do. It just so happens for him, he was pulling from a lot older. A lot of the same guys that the guys that we were naming were after. He jumped backwards. Yeah, and that's what we all do. We're all gonna sound like somebody. That's what's fun, and it's what I even tell young artists and musicians. Everyone's afraid they have to sound like themselves right out of the gate. Well, how do you even do that? There's no way to do that. So what you got to do is sound like your heroes. Do your hero. Do all of it. But don't just do one hero. You got to pick 5 guys at the beginning, or pick 3 guys, and then, expand from there and kind of start pulling them in. And that's what's going to make you yourself. And before you know it, you'll be 3 years into it and going, yeah, well, I'm pulling from Jimmy Page, but I'm also hearing this little section and playing a little Django lick. And I'm also going to pull from up here. And man, I really love what Johnny Greenwood is doing, which has nothing to do with either two of these guys. And when you start doing this and pulling it from all these different directions, all of a sudden what comes out of that is very much new and different.
Yeah, which is great. And
all of a sudden you have your own little style. So it's all starting with emulation.
I mean, Scott, did it blow you away? I mean, almost from the get-go, people reacted to the band. I mean, with the first album, with Before the Fire. And then on the second album, Pressure and Time, right? I mean...
Well, technically the EP was second.
Well, yeah. Okay, right. But
which is a much more marking record, because the first record, Jay wasn't in the band. He actually just re-recorded those songs.
Right.
And which is bizarre, and I had to really coax him into it because he's a writer. No way does he want to go sing an album full of songs that I wrote, but he did it, and it worked. So that EP really marks where we wrote together, and it's kind of much more of a rival sons sound, Yeah.
And what you notice when Pressure and Time came out, that Storm Thorgerson, who of course had done all those great album covers for Pink Floyd and for so many other people, he came to you guys. He wanted to work with you.
No, we chased him down. Storm.
Oh, really? All right.
It wasn't a big chase, but I will say something funny about it, and I hope I don't offend anybody. But we just felt like that album cover, after all the years of loving his album covers. I have one right here. I think that was him as well. So many, and I just was such a fan. We got ours, and we really worked with him on what we wanted to do, and we got all these samples, and what we ended up getting, we kind of went, we got it, and it's got its own kind of iconicness now 10 years later. I hate to say that about my own work, but it's got its own like stamp. But we first thought this is a really ugly album cover, but it's not like we're gonna reject Storm Thorgerson's album cover. But
That's amazing.
it was weird, and it was still a great honor to work with them. And we ended up meeting at this Varvatos event up in LA, and it was really wonderful to get face to face with them and talk. And yeah, I mean, he just was a big hero of the album art world to me, and Jay as well, and all of us.
That's amazing. So, and then, I mean, you've opened for so many great bands and toured with so many people because people really fell in love with the band. And I mean, is there any tour or band in particular? Because you've toured with so many. I mean, whether it's Kiss in Italy or Black Sabbath. I mean, you've toured with so many bands. Is there any tour in particular that you remember where you really felt like you bonded with the other band and it was just
the only one truly would be the Sabbath one because we were out for 13 months. We actually spent time and kind of came home, got back out with them, came home, went back out, came home, went back out. And that's how that whole tour went for a long time. And we became actually close with the crew. Our crews got tight and just kind of got in a real flow with that band. And it was also just a massive honor to be picked for something like that. It wasn't just, a week of shows or something. It was the wrap up of one of the most iconic bands in the history of rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was real special, really important. I was going to mention, you were saying we did all these shows, and I was thinking, our first arena show was with AC/DC at the MGM Grand, and it was sold out, like oversold out. And we were not an arena band at that time, but that was the beginning, and it was so far out, man. It was really just far out to be literally coming from little clubs and to pop into that arena. That was the energy was so hype and crazy because they had put the show off and rescheduled it. The fans were just manic. And I remember I had my little amps on stage, and we had our little club setups on this arena, and we were under the drum riser. There's a little like ladder you can go under, and that's how we got on stage. And I remember sitting there under the drum riser, and everybody was like, okay, wait right here. The lights are going to go out, and then they'll announce you, and you go out. And we're like, okay, holy shit, there's a lot of people here. And they hit the lights, and that first roar of the audience of this sold-out place, it was real, wow, that excitement everyone gets. And I remember feeling like I was in the ocean, like at Pipeline, and I just felt like this big wave come up above me, like, oh, whoa, that's kind of that's a different feeling. Holy crap.
Yeah. Was that the Black Ice tour at the beginning of that?
I don't even remember what it was for them, to be honest.
Yeah. But that's crazy,
It was really intense, and it's, now we can do arenas, and we ended up really, especially from the Sabbath run, it's goes from intimidating and strange to kind of warm and inviting. Once you've won over an audience, you start to feel the insulated kind of feeling of that room. These big arenas that go up and around you, and they're full, and the crowd's with you. You go, oh yeah, this feels good. Yeah. I kind of like this, and you feel really cozy every night. But it takes like 100 of those.
Yeah,
it takes 100 of those shows, and then you feel good.
Amazing. Now, by the third album, Head Down, we're talking about that. I know you guys went to Nashville, worked with Dave. It took you guys about 20 days to make that record. But you have a long relationship with Dave Cobb. And Dave, of course, was with you guys. I mean, he's exploded since those periods of time and done so much. But talk to me about your initial friendship and relationship, because you've had one of the longest with him, obviously.
Well, I met Dave to do the Before the Fire record. And it was before the fire. It was for another band and another setup, and it had come through another manager and band friend of ours. And they said, "We got this guy. You got to meet him." An old band named Low Five. Do you remember that band, Low Five?
Yeah, I do remember Low Five. Yeah.
Yeah. So the low, not Low Five, Low Five. So
Oh,
this
oh,
band,
five.
they
Okay.
were a local band out here in LA anyway. They turned me on, really cool band, and they said they had just worked with Dave. You got to work with him. He's like you. He's a like musical history dork, and he's an incredible producer. He's kind of unknown, but he's perfect. You guys will hit it off. And I went, oh, okay, I'll call him up. So that's it. I just called, no management, no none of that shit. I just called Dave, and he said, come down, let's talk and grab coffee. So we talked and grabbed coffee, and it was just an immediate connection. We're the same age. Kind of felt like we were into the same rock and roll. And he's working in this epic room up in LA. So yeah, let's do it. And it was really weird working with him because I had brought a bunch of songs in, and for Before the Fire, he kind of went, well, hey man, it sounds like you have all those songs. They're kind of demoed. It sounds like you recorded them and gave it a go. Why don't we record all new songs? And I was thinking, what in the world are you talking about, man? Like I wrote songs to come in here and like make a record, and I'm kind of offended, right? You're kind of like, what are you talking about? And he goes, come on, like we just try something else. And it was the most preposterous thing I had ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And what happened was we worked off the floor, and we worked quickly. We built things quick, and we talked about it and went back in and recorded. We came back in the room and listened and recorded. And then I would sit and write lyrics. I would bounce off Dave with some lyrics. He would throw some at me. I would throw some at him, and we would just work. It was just like no other way that I worked, because I was coming from, being on Atlantic and stuff, and they're looking for pre-production and shit. People want to know, what are you recording? What are you doing? And that's kind of just how it was for everybody. And we did it totally different. And I've never really looked back. That's kind of how I do it. Even with producing, I like to do it that way. I might do a little bit more work depending on the artist, but I still want to get things off the floor and keep it live. And it's been something that he really indoctrinated me and the rest of the band into this kind of style.
Yeah, so that it feels very natural and it feels immediate, right?
You think about these old records that we love so much, some that we're even going to talk about in a minute, and that's how they did it. These bands like The Who, they were, playing gigs early in the day,
Yeah,
and then going to record in the afternoon and playing another gig at night.
I know.
And I mean, they'll cut the most legendary song of all time in that pocket.
Yeah.
Do 5 songs, in an hour, and they're gone.
It's amazing. Yeah. The stuff that people were able to do. And they had to. I mean, some of those bands back then were putting out 2 to 3 records a year. It was incredible.
Strike while the iron's hot. I think they all thought they were going to do it for a year or 2.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the whole reason why, John Fogerty said that he kept making albums. And in 1969, he made 3. Was he goes, I was afraid people wouldn't care anymore if we went off the charts and wanted people to go doing stuff.
That was a tough time. He was smart to do that. 1959, everybody, I like all my artist friends that go, man, I wish I could take the time machine back to 1969 or whatever, and that era was the era. That's the era I would have done good in music. I hear people always say that about my band too. If these guys were around in like 1970, they would be the biggest band on planet Earth. And I think, are you guys out of your mind? Do you understand the competition in 1969?
Yeah. I mean, the Beatles were still making records. Stones, everybody, right?
Beatles, Stones, Hendrix. It's just like on and on and on. Zeppelin.
Yeah. Zeppelin. I mean, everybody.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. You're right about that. It's funny you say that because that's great. That's great. I'll remember that. Hey, so I guess around the time of Head Down is when Robin ended up leaving the band, and then Dave came in, right? Because Robin didn't want to. He just didn't want to tour anymore. You have to be committed to the lifestyle.
You have to understand during that Head Down. I mean, really from the beginning of Pressure and Time, a little bit before that, all the way through Head Down. We were like on it's like our asses were on fire. It was into a hellish swirl of touring. It was heavy duty.
Yeah.
Not for the faint of heart. And it taxed us. It taxed our families. It was just blistering. And it's not like we were making fortunes or anything. We were making rent, if that. And we just did not come up for air. We were just striking it and hitting it. And this was the time when our sets were closer together. So our European tours, we weren't doing like 3 on, 1 off. We were doing 5 on, 6 on, 7 on, 1 off, like, and just hitting it so hard. I think it's not for everybody. And the band was growing. The band was doing better and better. But when he left, we were doing the best we'd ever done. But I think it just taxed him, and he wasn't that animal. He didn't want to be that kind of a creature. It was hard when he left. It was a bummer, but it was great to come upon Dave Bestie, and I think he's just a great, great fit and a great brother.
Yeah,
And
he's been great in the band since then. Tell us,
sorry.
He's been great in the band since then. I mean, he's
Yeah.
awesome. And so, tell me about meeting Dave. How that transition took place.
We were friends with Dave already. Miley and Jay go way back with Dave. We had played some shows with a good friend of ours named Jameson Burt, who we've taken out, a great artist here in LA, good friend, brother.
Yeah.
And Dave was in his band at this time. And it was just somebody that had the audacity when we were playing together, and he was in another band, he would kind of tell us, anytime you guys want a new guy, I can definitely take that guy's job. Which, if you know our old bass player, it's very audacious to say that, because the guy was a killer. He
was great.
A deadly player. But we always liked that and always chuckled, always thought it was great. And we always loved Dave's performance and tone and how he approached things, and just loved him as a person too. So we didn't audition anybody. When Robin left, we just kind of all went, hey, we should hit Dave up. That's the guy. And that's what we did.
And I mean, you've kept so busy through great Western Valkyrie, and I think about that in Hollow Bones. And I mean, since that, the other thing I always wanted to say to you, Scott, was you realized how people in the UK and over in Europe loved and got the band right away. There was just so much love and respect over there. And it always made me happy to see how the press treated you over there, and even the radio. I mean, the fact that people were just really great fans, and you had this incredible support, and there was such love. Let me ask you, was that a reason why at that point you were like, we've got to spend more time over there, because people there really appreciate us and we want to ride this through?
Of course. Yeah. You go to where the fans are, and we put a little extra time in there because we had signed to Earache Records, who was based out of Nottingham, and that's where all their connections were. And it just lit really quick because of maybe coming through their pipeline with their people, and some of the shows we got really quickly out there, maybe because of that label and some of the good press we got. It just lit a lot quicker. So we found ourselves doing better and better out there, and kind of very slowly, gradually moving up here. So every time we'd come home, we'd go, I don't know, I think we should go back to Europe again, or we should hit this section of Europe. And it's why we've continually done better. And like, we hit lots of tertiary markets and caught fire in like weird places like Norway and Sweden and Switzerland, and it just like lit up more and more. Yeah. And that's what happens. You keep going back because you got to pay bills, man. And it's, playing to, at that time, we would play to like, I don't know, 300 people, 500 people, depending on where we were in the United States. And we were playing to 1,500 people or 1,000 people in Europe every night. It's a big difference,
Absolutely. What would you say is like the strangest, most far out of the ordinary market that you played as a band? Going overseas.
By market, what do you mean? Territory?
Yeah, like territory.
I don't know. I think some of the Eastern Europe gets pretty far out.
Yeah.
When you get like Estonia.
Yeah.
It's pretty far out.
But they're big rock fans, right? I mean, they love music.
The rock fans are everywhere, man. And that's what you notice. You think, is there rock and roll in Russia? Is there rock and roll in Norway? Is there, in these weird places, Finland? Like, you never are a kid going, man, I hope we do good in Finland.
Yeah.
And you go there, and it's like these places barely even exist for a California boy growing up. They're just not a thing. And to go over there and go, wow. Not only are they here, they're here strong. They're here in numbers and killing and pumping fist and knowing every lyric and knowing every lick. And yeah, it was a really wonderful thing to tour all over the world and feel that.
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dave and him getting that record, doing his record deal with Low Country Sound, and of course, bringing you guys along and wanting to work with you there. And here comes the sixth album, which is a brilliant record, Feral Roots. And, you know, I felt like finally in the States, the band is getting the recognition that it deserves because, you know, I mean, it was certainly getting airplay. Too bad it became a really big song for you guys here. Tell me about the making of that record, Feral Roots, and also that transition. How did the whole thing come down where Dave said, you guys, hey, listen, I want you guys to be on my label. I'm doing this thing.
I mean, we're close with Dave, and we were hearing about that label before it was even out. You know, we were making one record a year, so we pretty much saw each other like clockwork. You know,
yeah.
I think as it grew closer to him finalizing that deal, he just kind of informed us, I want to make sure we like take care of you guys and get it all situated. You guys are definitely going to be a part of this, and I think that came about through our radio gal at Atlantic. Leah also was a big proponent, where she ended up going to the label and saying to Atlantic and saying, I want this band. And she's broke tons and tons of bands.
Yeah, she's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Leah Pizzacani, awesome, killer, and a big reason we've done good with this album cycle. But I think, and that was all at the same moment. Like, she had hit up Pete, and Dave's deal was with Warner through Elektra, and he hadn't done anything with Atlantic yet. But it all kind of just descended at the same moment. And I don't know how the inner workings exactly worked, but the way it came back to me was very serendipitous, and it just went boop. Dave was like, I've been waiting to like get you guys here, and it came from Atlantic instead of Elektra for me, and here we go. And it just kind of lined up really smooth, dovetail joint.
Yeah, it absolutely did, which I think is great. So when you guys got the news that you were nominated for those 2 Grammys, I mean, you've already won awards, especially a lot of them overseas. You know, best new band to watch, breakthrough band. I mean, there were so many, you know, best touring band. There were just a ton of different accolades in that happened overseas and in Europe and in the UK, which was great. But it was really nice to see you guys nominated. That made me extremely happy as a fan of the band. How was that for you guys?
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, it's technically our 7th album, and we felt like we made 7 good records, honestly, without patting ourselves on the back too much or being, you know, self-gratiating or whatever. We're not like that. And the truth is, we just won't put a record out if it's not there and we're not going. That's a good record. This is a good record. We're really, really behind it, 110%. So we've been feeling like we're making good records this whole time, and to finally have somebody go, oh, yeah, we're going to recognize that on this big scene. I think it's just really, it's not something we need per se, but it's nice to be acknowledged, especially for what the Grammys is. It's kind of more of a business recognition where all the people inside of that business go, we see you. Yeah. We see you. So it's like, oh, cool. Do you see us? Because we've been here for a minute. We're ready. We're making good records. So thanks for acknowledging.
Yeah.
And it was a really warm, humbling, great feeling when we got the news. We were actually on tour. We were in Copenhagen, I think. We were in Denmark. And it was morning for us when they released it, and it was our morning. We were getting to our hotel. We were all downstairs in the bus, kind of sitting around each other, and people started breaking out their phones and going, "Oh my gosh, they're naming like nominees right now," and they, you know, our great friend and one-time publicist or many-time publicist, and then she's done so much for us, Talita Jenman, was reading off all these different things and saying, this band, this category, this band, and she went, oh my God, you guys got nominated for, you know, performance with Too Bad, and we all kind of got really warm and like, holy shit, wow, we got a nomination here. And then she was reading, we all celebrated, and the whole crew got excited, and then we're just kind of taking it all in and very happy in that moment. And then she goes, holy shit, you just got another nomination for Rock Album of the Year. And we were like, holy shit, that's a really big one for us. Yeah. And so it was just really nice to be recognized, and we're really happy. It would have been great to take them home, but it's very political, and there was great artists in the category, so it's all good, man.
Yeah, I just thought it was great, though, that you finally got that recognition from them, as you should. Let's talk about your favorite albums. One of the things we do on the show is we ask people to pick 7 albums, and we know that's not easy. I mean, when I wrote my book, they would only let me pick 50 for each decade. Can you imagine? I'm looking going, in the 70s alone? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was talking about this to my girlfriend. If you boiled any artist could boil down their artistry and their influences down to 6 or 7, albums or books or anything, it'd just be pretty shallow. So it's a difficult thing, but yeah. I've given you some records, and they were the records that came to my head immediately when it came to me through management. Before we had this conversation, they said, you're going to need to know these records. And I went, oh, I'm not going to give it any thought because I know which records influenced me, and I kind of went to my childhood self.
Which is so great. Blaze James, who is your manager, and I love, he's one of the greats. One of my great friends. I want to thank you for doing that, for taking the time, because I know it's a difficult decision to make that, but it's cool. You just said, well, what did I love when I was younger? So
yeah,
some great records. So let's start with the first one on the list. We have the Beatles' Revolver, which has always been for me.
It's a good way to start because in celebration of John's birthday, 80th birthday, what would be?
Yes.
Revolver. I think like anybody that's a real Beatles fan, I'm sure for you too, you could pick any Beatles record.
Yes.
I could tell you why any of their records, you can choose any and tell you why it's the best one. Put it that way. Yeah. I'm nerdy like that. This one particularly, though, the Revolver record is something I kind of grew up on. It was one of the first ones. I didn't have all of them, like growing up. I heard all of them because of my parents and aunties and uncles and stuff. But I had on cassette, or earlier on when we were kids, you had little mini record players.
Yes.
I had a few records, and I had a Revolver. And my first cassettes were Revolver was one of them. And I had just a few early cassettes, but this was an important record for me because it just felt it was something that could relate to a 8-year-old as much as it could relate to an 80-year-old. When I listened to this record recently, I was listening to it like that and going, God, when you think about like even Taxman, but Good Day Sunshine. And Your Bird Can Sing, Dr. Robert. These are songs like a young child can hear, and they're fun. They're kind of nursery rhymey,
Yeah.
Got
Sticky Into My Life, another one like that, right? Where it's
completely. And this is also a good record because it's the beginning of the Beatles becoming psychedelic, which is so important in their career. It's also a turning point for them recording-wise. If you listen to their records, I think about Rubber Soul, it starts to sound different. They're with Jeff Emmerich now. They're turning this way a little bit. Like, whoa, these recordings are starting to sound a little more inventive and cleaner and more alive. And the acoustic guitar sound amazing, and the voices are sounding really clear. And they're starting to get really experimental as a group. They're trying new things. They're using loops. They're speeding things up, slowing it down, using lots of different instrumentation. We have like Eleanor Rigby with this huge, beautiful arrangement. One of the most poignant things about this record, how it affected my life, though, also, is this is when you first start to hear the sitar. You start to hear Eastern music influence in the Beatles, and it's like the first time I'm ever hearing this as a kid, and it's significant to me personally because I went on to become a Vaishnav and study Eastern religion and practice, and that's kind of a mark for me. Like when I trace it back, I think, oh yeah, the Beatles, they had that sound, that Eastern sound. It made me kind of follow it and understand it a little bit more, like where it came from. But I think if you listen every track on this record, it's just phenomenal. There's no bad. It's just every song is in a different direction and telling a different story, and it's just the record that just keeps on giving.
It really does. For No One, it's just one of the saddest heartbreak songs too, right?
Yeah,
Then
love it.
yeah, right. I love that too. And I'm Only Sleeping. I mean, there's so many great ones. But it's a great record, and I love the way you described it. The next album that you picked was the one right before the major breakthrough for Pink Floyd. It was the one before it. It was Metal.
Yeah.
And let's talk about why Metal is such a favorite of yours. I mean, it's got obviously echoes and One of These Days, but tell me why it's important to you, Scott.
Yeah, it was just a record I connected with as a kid. I think much like much like it was a turning point to me, Revolver, I think Metal was also a bit of a turning point. I think before it, you had Obscured by Clouds and Atom Heart Mother, and they're starting to go down that road of like getting more cinematic, wider sounding and bigger and deeper, I love Obscured by Clouds, by the way. I think that one, it was almost that one.
Yeah.
It was this one because I feel like they're just perfecting it more and more. And by the time they get to this one, from the onset of One of These Days, right when it comes on, it's just frightening and big and darker. Like Atom Heart Mother, if you listen to that record and you're home alone and like you're doing your chores and hanging out or cooking, that record scared the shit out of you. There's some overtones on that Atom Heart record, Mother. It's just creepy. It's just a weird feeling on that record. But this one just goes all the way. It goes all the way. Where Atom Heart Mother was just kind of creepy, to me, Metal, One of These Days, it bludgeons you over the head with this like funny voice, gonna cut you into tiny little pieces. Boom. And it's a real bomb that goes off. And I also like that it's a real warm record. It sounds really warm, and some of these other songs are really warm sounding on it. And with like Saint-Tropez, they're kind of like they show a lighter side that almost reflects a little bit of that like Syd Barrett kind of zone to me on this record still. And I like that that's in there because I'm a big fan of Piper and some of that earlier stuff too. But the real thing that sunk it for me it was just echoes. I would have picked this record if there was just different songs on it because of that song, and it was that was the track for me that just like it blew my mind. It blew my mind. I think it's as good as anything on Dark Side, and still when I listen to it, I still get chills. I'm getting chills talking about it. Yeah. It's just such a huge, wide, big, important track to me. And I reflect and reference this track constantly when I'm making something cinematic and large and like an epic. I always think, oh yeah, echoes. It's just so that gets the guitar work, and it's so crazy. The harmony vocals, that it just has it all for me.
It's great. Now you picked Led Zeppelin for them fifth studio album, the double Physical Graffiti. Now, I'm sure you probably walked down St. Mark's Place and stood in front of that building, 95 to 98.
Yeah, I have that record right here for you guys.
Yeah, here it is.
Here it is.
And what a great cover. Speaking of Storm, right? I mean,
that is cool. This is one of the coolest album covers ever, right?
Yeah,
yeah. With the thing that you can pop out and like put the words in or the different pictures. Super fun. This record, to me, I think it's just one of the greatest doubles of all time. I think it marks, to me, one of the truly deserved double albums. The great real, like, White Album would be one of them, but Physical Graffiti is one of them, And I think every song is good. Every single song is making a statement, just similar to some of these other records I'm talking about. And I think this is like really what influenced me with Rival Sons too. Like I wanted to make sure we made records that there was never filler. And I think Physical Graffiti, even as a double album, sets out to do that. And that's why even when you hear interviews with Page, that's what he said. We just had a lot of good material. You never set out to make a double album. You just have a double album, Yeah. And I think this record, it's just, if you think about what's on there, it's so many good songs, and the songs that are good are so fucking good. Like, it's bizarre. Like Kashmir, In My Time of Dying, Trampled Underfoot, Houses of the Holy, which who puts the song from the album that's already been released on the record. That's so cool. Just showing such like fluidity with their like catalog. You flip it and stuff like In the Light, that intro is ridiculous. It just got me for my whole life. Bronyar, which is like just crazy. This is an acoustic piece that's just like been a soundtrack to my life as a child, you know, and 10 years gone. I mean, arguably one of the best songs they've ever made. On and on and on. I think they show such breadth and mastery and power on an album like this. It should be on everyone's top list, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's one of the greats. No question about it. Now, what I love what you picked next, because this record was really important to me as a young kid, too. Lenny Kaye from the Patti Smith Group put this compilation together of great garage rock and psychedelic songs from the 1960s. And it inspired an entire series of records. But when he did it in 1972, and you've got the one with the original cover right in front of you. It's the Nuggets album, original psychedelic era. What a great record this is. I mean, I want to hear why you love it.
This record was very important to me. I got turned on to this years ago, and I am now a slight garage aficionado. I don't know if you're allowed to say that about yourself, but I'm really, really a garage rock type of guy, and have, you know, it's my record collection is made up of a lot of this kind of music, you know, and really I learned about it from this wonderful record. Everyone should go out and check it out. It's a reminder that it wasn't just these other bands that we're talking about today, which just were like the pillars of rock, your rock royalty. There was other bands. There was a lot of other bands, but these other bands were just, these big bands were so eclipsing. Like, who's going to put a record out when Sgt. Pepper's comes out? Who gets to put a record out when you know, Axis comes out? Who gets to put a record out when you know, these massive artists are putting out the records of their career?
Yeah.
So yeah, all these killer artists just fell to the wayside. They had one hit that maybe did something, and truthfully, they ended up becoming great on their own, just not famous. You know, bands like the Seeds, Chocolate Watch Band, Strawberry Alarm Clock, the Standells, on and on and on. Killer bands with tons of good songs.
Yeah, how about the Count Five from Santa Barbara, California? You used to wear the like capes. And Psychotic Reaction is like the great Lost Yardbird song.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm in love with this record. I still play it all the time. I don't think the other volumes hold up quite the same as this first one. This first one, to me, just plays like, you know, I mean, really, to me, it's like a greatest hits.
Yeah.
It's just like, I know most people are going to hear this and go, I don't know any of these songs, but Too Much to Dream, The Prunes. This was, if you were alive then, you heard this. People were covering this song. You know?
Yeah, it's a great song and a great way to open that album, too. So,
it's a big song. It's a big song, and it makes a kind of a statement right out of the gate. So yeah, this was an important record to me. It still is. And you're going to find a band that you love more than the next, and you should go out and buy records by that band, you know?
Yeah.
Check it out.
I love it. It's so great. Great pick there. Now, next up, you picked Neil Young's Harvest. And what a great run of albums he had at that period of time. The first one, of course, everybody knows this is Nowhere, After the Gold Rush, and then Harvest. Just an incredible record. Why is that the one that you love so much?
You know, like a lot of artists, I could have picked anything by Neil Young, but this was his one. You know, this is really his like crowning achievement, and it has such a feeling. Even the artwork, the album artwork, and just every track on this record, the sound of the recording, the lore of him recording the whole thing with a back brace on, the stripped away production that's like, you know, a lot of these songs don't even have hi-hat, you know, they've removed the hi-hat, and it's in place of it, you hear that acoustic guitar occupying that frequency range. And it's just, I'm a big desert person, Palm Desert and Joshua Tree, and I did some growing up in the high desert here in Hesperia, and I've spent a lot of time on the Mojave Riverbed. And this is just the perfect soundtrack for that. And I think it's a good reflection for me in my life. If you look at like the Beatles and Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and getting to this record as a kid, those three records, because Nuggets thing came later. But if you look at those three records, those were records of my childhood. And those were like parts of my personality. And if you think of this record in there, it's so different. It's so over here where those records were over here, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just that dusty road, kind of like desert sunset, kind of beautiful acoustic. And it kind of was a record that made me think, maybe I don't have to turn up too much. Maybe I just want to do a band like this. Maybe I just want to do this more alt Americana, like beautiful folk, like textural folk music. And the songwriting obviously is really powerful. And I love that the voice isn't your traditional kind of like beautiful, perfect voice. And I just find his voice absolutely truthful and believable. And yeah, I could have picked something else from him.
Yeah.
I love his whole career, but this is just like real crowning special record. And if you were going to have to turn somebody on to Neil Young, this is where you start them.
That's great. Out on the Weekend, Old Man, one of the great songs. And of course, everything. You know, the Damage Done, right?
It's out of control.
So many great songs. And Heart of Gold, which was the only number one single, but all those songs still hold up. And I love that you brought up the thing about the hi-hat, because I had not thought about that before. So that's really cool.
It's just it's so intimate, the record. And even like A Man Needs a Maid, it's such a weird lyrical song to swallow. Like, I don't, it's kind of just a weird emotion, and those lyrics are weird. But when you really get into it and you really swallow it and take it in, it's unbelievable. And the arrangement and what happens with the strings and everything, it'll topple you over.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Now, you picked one of Jeff Beck Group albums, of course, Beckola.
Here we go.
You know, great record, great cover, right?
Iconic,
yeah,
wonderful, beautiful.
Talk to me about
I could have picked something else.
Like Truth or Beck Bogart.
I think I could have picked a whole nother artist or anything too. I'm adding something into this just so you know that you guys don't know about, but I have the album instead of not including this, because this record is important to me as a guitar player.
Yeah.
It's one of the most connected I've felt to a guitar player ever. Like, for hearing a record the first time. Like, hearing it, and it's not that I think I play like Jeff Beck. It's just how he's phrasing, how he's attacking it, what he's saying, and how he's saying it with what tone. I felt like I was sitting next to a friend. I felt like a kinship with him that I just like. I get that. That is like how I understand the guitar. It's how I like it the best.
Yeah.
And I like that aggression, the way he attacks his notes, and I just think he is, like many guitar players believe this, he does it better than people. He just touches the guitar better. It just sounds cooler. It's not too flashy, really. It's just how he does it. Just bends a couple little notes, and the way, you know, that slappy fuzz tone, it's very, very influential, and something that I think it's just the way the electric guitar is supposed to be played and how it sounds. And if you go through our catalog, you will hear at least 50 times where you'll go, yeah, Beckola or Truth. He's got a little bit of that Jeff Beck sauce on here. That's what he's aiming at. Tonally, if it's not with my hand, God bless it. It's at least tonally, I'm in that zone with it, you know. And it's a fun record too. It's the young Rod Stewart. Come on.
Yeah, he sounds great on those records.
I think it's practically the invention of a new kind of singer. Rod Stewart is, certainly one of the greatest ever to live, and his amount of showmanship and kind of his swagger was a new thing. And I think more than on Truth, on Beckola, we really see it start to catch fire, and you can see him spinning the mic from the record player. You can just hear it. You know, his cool Rod Stewart moves.
Yeah, it's like he came of age on that record, and it got more comfortable. than on Truth. But they're still both great, right? And you were talking about Jeff Beck, and I always think about a guy who can make a guitar sound like a sitar on "Heart Full of Soul," the Yardbirds thing. Just like how so amazing.
I think that was actually that's Jimmy Page, I think, isn't it? Is that
No,
Heart Full of Soul?
no, that's Jeff Beck on that.
Is that Beck on that?
Yeah, on "Heart Full of Soul." Yeah,
that's right.
And it's just I love it. Yeah, because that was the thing that always blew me away about that. And I'm like, it sounds like a sitar, but he's doing it on a guitar.
The Yardbirds have some weird politics that happened for a minute. You know what it was Heart Full of Soul was the first single Jeff Beck was on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. That's what it is.
Yeah.
My brain is scrambled because Page got that gig.
Yeah.
And recommended his buddy Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
But he wasn't on it. He recommended it. That's right.
Yeah. That was great. It's so good, though, but I love you picked that. Now, the last album you picked so far is, unless you have another surprise for us, is Radiohead's OK Computer, their third album. Tell me why you love that one, Scott.
I think I was looking at this list and thinking, wow, this sounds like a bunch of stuff from the 60s, and that doesn't really encompass stuff that has been influential on me. So I was having a hard time deciding in a quick moment what was more influential. Was it I love their whole early career was really, really big, from Pablo Honey to Kid A were like big records for me. I used to deliver pizzas in the high desert in my 1975 Toyota, and it had a cassette player, and I wore out Pablo Honey, and then into the Benz, which was just like times 4. Like this band seemingly grew double or more every time they did another record. And I think this record, just the production, the writing, the confidence, the all-out disregard for where they had been and what's happening in that moment. I like that this band kind of just felt like, we don't fucking care. We know what we're doing. We do what we do really good. We know better than you. So just listen or don't listen. We don't care. That's kind of what it felt like to me. And that the audacity in that, I can hear it on the record because, like you, this record, I was playing music and in bands and buying everything and learning everything. And this record came out, and I was such a fan of the Bends. And this record sounds almost nothing like the Bends. And I thought, holy shit, this is a whole different soundscape. Like, that over compressed, when that big guitar starts out, and the super compressed drums. I just thought, I don't even know what this sounds like. This is so incredible, man. And the whole record just holds you like that. And it seems to echo a modern Pink Floyd in its soundscape and cinematic. And it just, it's such a complete package. Even the cover, it feels like Minority Report meets Dark Side of the Moon. And I'm just like, it's really incredible, all the way through.
That is a great description. I love I love that. I'm gonna use that.
There's something really organic about the record and something very digital, and it was a real indication to where Radiohead was going to go, and it made a massive mark on me on this record, and I was probably more blown away by Kid A, but this record was just so woven into me, I was already in. This was the Kool-Aid, that I really, at this new sound that they had. But even Kid A, I want to talk about and say, it probably knocked me off balance even more.
Yeah.
I remember the day that came out, I went and bought it at the record store, popped it. I had bought a new car, popped it in the car, and had this super sound system. It was when I signed to Atlantic with Human Lab. So I had like a fool went and bought a new Land Rover and put a gajillion-dollar radio inside of this car and went, I'm going to listen to this record top to bottom. And I did. And it just chopped my head off when I heard. I just couldn't believe it. And I think OK was like the beginning of that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Did you say you had another surprise for us, or?
Oh yeah. I think we should just talk about it. I think it's just important to talk about it.
Yeah, we have to.
We have to talk about it. And this record could easily be on this list for me. And you're thinking, well, you guys don't sound anything like Van Halen. you guys, you don't play guitar so much like Van Halen. No tapping going on, really. That's not really. I don't think that's the point of having an influence. Just sounding like that influence. But I think if you're my age or younger, I guess, certainly a little bit older, you could not touch a guitar and not be absolutely enamored and overwhelmed by that record. This Van Halen one, it was such a record, and I did a little tribute to him. And I don't know if anybody else didn't read this. I'll tell that little story that when I was about, I think 8 years old, 7 years old, my auntie was having a party. She always had these big parties at my grandma's house, and I could hear them partying and listen to music all the time. It's where a lot of my early music influences came from. And I had heard them playing this record and didn't know what it was. And after they all kind of got too drunk and simmered down, went somewhere else, went outside to smoke or something, I ran into this little party room that we had and popped it out of the cassette player and looked at it. Oh, Van Halen. Okay. And ran back to my room. And I swiped this tape from my auntie because it was just so like intoxicating what I was hearing. And I had to like use one of my other tape cases because I never had it. So I got rid of this old Air Supply cassette, chucked it, and put this tape in there, and kind of drew a cover, and ended up. I did the cover and the cassette thing later because I got so into it. But I remember listening to this record at that age and thinking like, oh my gosh, and just feeling free, just feeling like excited, and feeling like just really overjoyed, like what is it? How is he doing it? Is that even a guitar? And then later playing the guitar, it was a real marked record of like having to learn Eruption, having to learn all the songs on this record, and really all the songwriting, the tone, the way they recorded with Ted Templeman is exactly what we're talking about. How we did with Dave Cobb, like off the floor. Except they had the songs. It was already like ingrained in them, But you have that live off the cuff feeling, and it's just the record. It felt like an epiphany, and I think a lot of people share that.
Absolutely. It's that first record is phenomenal. It's a great record, and it was a sad loss. Certainly, 65 is young, and he left us with some amazing music. And that record in particular has always been my favorite, just because it's just when it came out, it was an explosion. There's no question about it.
Yeah, it's the one. It's the one. I mean, I think you can do a lot of different records with Van Halen because they had a real hot streak. 1, 2, Diver Down, Women and Children.
Yeah. Fair Warning. Yeah.
Fair Warning. I mean, they're all super good, and the party never stops. It's like you put those records on and the party's happening the whole time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about this one because it's the one. It's the first one, and really it's the way I discovered Van Halen too, and just went, "Oh my gosh." I didn't play the guitar yet. I didn't play the guitar till I was 12 maybe. But this was the record that probably put me on that path and made me go, I got to play the guitar. If this guy can do this kind of stuff and make me feel like this and make everyone feel like that, I got to play the guitar because there's something magical happening. It's like he's a magician.
Yeah.
I think I felt that way about Jimmy Page, watching him like on Song Remains the Same. It's more like a magician. It's magic when you watch the little solo section on Song Remains the Same and he's using the Echoplex. Yeah. And they're doing all the effects. I'm thinking, this isn't even like music. This is like magic.
Yeah.
And I didn't even need a visual on the Van Halen record. It was just like magic listening to it. Like, wow, it's sleight of hand, and there's no hand. It's just in my ears.
Yeah. It's amazing. I appreciate you bringing it out because, like I said, losing Eddie this week, that was a rough one.
It's lame. We all know it's super lame. It sucks to lose our heroes, but
yeah, like
you said, what a breadth of work he left us with, and technique, and excitement, and pleasure, and what are you going to do? He made this amazing contribution, so that's what we're going to focus on and go, holy shit! Everyone go put on some Van Halen records and bow at the altar of Van Halen and be stoked.
Yeah,
Be stoked we have it.
yeah, the music is great. Scott, thanks for doing this today, man. It was so great to have you, and we're looking forward to the next Rival Sons album when that time comes. And I'm excited about the stuff that you're producing. I'll be keeping an eye out for it and let people know what to look for. But thanks for taking the time today, man. I really enjoyed having you here. It was great.
Great chatting, dude. Good to see you. Hope you're holding together with all this pandemic and all that craziness.
Yeah, it is craziness, but we'll get through it, right? Get through it.
We're getting through it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for taking the time, man. It was
right
great.
on, brother. Good
All
to
the
see
best. Great to see you, man. All the best to you and your family and everything, and that puppy as well.
you.
Okay.
Right on, bud. See you, man.
Great talking music with you. That was fantastic. Scott Holiday right there. So great, man. Love his passion for music and all those records and just stories. A lot of fun today. Rival Sons right there. Of course, the most recent album is Feral Roots. If you don't own it, you should. If you like to buy tangible things that you can hold. And if not, definitely, however you enjoy music. I could say the word consume because people say that, but however you consume or enjoy music, however you take it in, your passion, make sure you check out Rival Sons and their whole back catalog. I want to thank Scott Holiday and everybody else, Blaze James and management over there, and of course, everybody here. Chris Trevero, Laura Diaz, Steve, Alyssa, Carrie Brown, everybody here at Rolling Live Studios. It was a great day. I'm Matt Pinfield. Have yourself a great week. Thanks so much for joining me. And remember, as I always say, you're never in a lonely place as long as you've got music in your life. It's the thing that always gets us through. And it's gotten me through so much, and I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again next week. Take care, and thanks for watching us.